You're listening to a fight against free kill laws from AMP Media Production Studio.
Welcome to the Fight Against Free Kill Laws with Ed Salazar, where we give a voice to those who have suffered firsthand from medical malpractice. In Florida, families devastated by medical negligence are left without justice because of a law many don't even know exists. Florida's free kill law prevents families from holding doctors accountable. These are real stories with real loss and no justice. Contact Ed at 561-239-2417 or visit afreekill.com. Today we uncover the truth, share real stories, and demand change.
Good evening, friends. Thank you again. This is going to be a very charged session. We're getting down to crunch time with our efforts to abolish the free kill laws. We'll go into some detail on that. But first, I want to follow up on something that I mentioned last week about sovereign immunity. A friend of mine who had read the book asked me, said, well, if I don't understand, if your son had a 3-year-old daughter, then why was he a free kill? Well, what happened was, in 2009, there was a statutory limit on what awards could be made for a medical negligence case in a sovereign hospital. And in 2009, that cap was $100,000 per claimant. Now, my son had Kira, who is his bloodline, and Tiana, who was his stepdaughter. But Christopher was the only father that Tiana had ever known, and they loved each other very, very much. But because she was not his bloodline, she had no claim for awards for medical negligence under the sovereign immunity statutes. So in 2009, try to imagine how far you could go pursuing a court hearing with $100,000 as the maximum award. It was impossible to get a lawyer to take the case. I will forever be grateful to a lawyer by the name of Scott Hanratty. He and his partner agreed to work with us to get us as far as we could. We were told that our best option was to go to mediation. We went to mediation, and the attorneys gathered representing the physicians from the ER, representing the physicians from the anesthesia group, and the hospital in general. So this whole table full of lawyers, one at a time, told us how sorry they were for our loss. And at the conclusion of the mediation session, they said that they would award us $40,000. They wouldn't even come close to the statutory limit, which was $100,000, and there was nothing we could do. When those lawyers got up and filed out of the room, I looked over at my lawyer and I said, what happened? What just happened here? He looked at me and he said, Ed, no lawyer will ever tell you this, or no lawyer will ever admit saying this, but when they have a client who is protected by sovereign immunity statutes, they will tell that client, offer whatever you want. There is nothing they can do. You have a free kill. Now, you can imagine how that made me feel. And that moment right there was what inspired me to tell this story, to write the book. And I will not stop until this ridiculous, horrible, draconian law is abolished. Okay, I have to give an awful lot of thanks to my friend Travis Creighton. He stepped in at the last moment to help me with tonight's show. This guy is a wizard. I don't know how he accumulates as much information as he does, but I'm so grateful that he does. We're in a tough spot right now. We have to get some senator. We have to get a senator to agree to have the bill read on the Senate floor and approved to go to a committee for review, or we're out of luck. So we are imploring everyone who has an interest in this cause, everyone who has an interest in this case, to write to the state legislators in the state of Florida on the Florida Medical Rights Association website and on their social media. You can get information on how to reach these people and to write to them. Implore them to allow this to be done. There are a couple points about the arguments against abolishing the law that we want to talk about tonight. Can we bring Travis in right now? Travis, thank you thank you so very much for taking the time to join us.
My pleasure.
One of the things that people have been talking a lot about, and one of the things that I found very, very interesting was I think it was Cindy who brought up the idea that wouldn't it be interesting if hospitals were forced under full disclosure to indicate that if you are coming to this hospital and you are the victim of medical negligence and you are older than 25, single, and have no dependent children, that you may be subject to, and then have a detailed explanation of the statute and how it works. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that would be great. I think it should be signage that's posted as opposed to an employee that may make a mistake and not say it. They don't have to have insurance. They can post a sign and take out a bond or whatever, security for some coverage, and they don't have to keep insurance, but they do have to post that sign. And if they did something like that, if it was statutory, I wouldn't want to leave it to the person to do voluntarily. But I do think it should be, if stated, recorded in the medical record that it was stated, and have the person sign off on it, the person being the patient or the representative of the patient. I think there needs to be some absolute proof that it was done.
You know, when you're admitted to a hospital and they give you all these things and they say, put your initials here, put your initials here, put your initials here. You know, things that nobody ever reads, right?
Right. Well, because you're emergent, you're like,
yeah,
I'll sign whatever.
Wouldn't it be something if that stipulation was included in one of those little things that you initial? It isn't.
True, but I would
right?
still like to know about it. I'd still
Right.
like to know about it. If I'm just signing and not reading it, what good does it really do me?
What do you think the odds would be that the hospitals would ever put up that signage?
I think they have a mighty good, and it would probably never happen.
The other thing, the fact that you don't have to be a resident of Florida to become a victim. And I think this is really interesting, especially with the amount of weight that the state of Florida puts on tourism. Look at the FIFA World Cup. They want to host some FIFA World Cup games, right? You know, it's just, you know, these are things that people should talk about and people should know about, right?
Yeah, I can almost guarantee you that some visitor will see a hospital while they're here. Don't know how many, but I'm sure there's going to be at least one. And heaven forbid something happen, they will fall underneath the law.
Yeah, so they don't have to be a resident of the state of Florida for this to happen.
No, not at all.
And this is something that I want to emphasize to our viewers. You know, I'm so gratified by the fact that, you know, our viewership is expanding to a lot of other states in the United States right now. Word of mouth is getting around, and the word is getting out there. Any support, any assistance, any leverage that we can get from people to put pressure on the legislature to act on this doesn't have to come from residents of the state of Florida. It can come from any citizen of the United States or the world,
Well,
for that matter.
other states need to be concerned because you have national organizations like AMA, American Medical Association, that is pushing for the same legislation across the nation. So what they can get passed here locally, they'll export it to other states.
Yeah, they would want to use Florida as a template
Yep,
to put this all across the nation.
exactly.
We can't let that happen. And can we put up, G-Man, that screenshot that's listed DeSantis? Can we put that up, please? Okay, I think this is kind of interesting. I can't remember who from our organization first put this up on social media, but it when DeSantis vetoed the proposal last year, even though it had overwhelming support from both houses, he stated that he would go along with the proposal if caps were put on the awards. And I think it's quite interesting. Well, first of all, caps don't work. What happened with my son is a prime example. Even though in 2009 the maximum award would have been $100,000 per claimant, I think that number in Florida is now up to $250,000. But even there, you look at the cost of bringing a case to court. What would be left for the lawyers, and then to the defendants, or not the defendants, but the people seeking judgment. It's just they know that this is a self-limiting clause.
Well, here's a problem with that clause that he says, if you give us caps, we'll give you access to the courts. If you look at Florida's Constitution, Article 1, Section 21, it reads, access to the courts. The courts shall be open to every person for redress of any injury, and justice shall be administered without sale, denial, or delay. So I ask you, if you are bargaining, if you give me caps, I will give you access to the court. Is that not a violation of Florida's Constitution? You're
Sounds like
making a
it to me.
trade. You're making a trade.
So
So the
is
Florida
that
governor, in my opinion, in that statement, is willing to violate Florida's Constitution.
and that's why our people referred to it as a Trojan horse. If you say yes to that, then you're opening the door for caps to be placed on all cases, all medical negligence cases, all malpractice cases.
And who's to say caps don't diminish over time? What if they lower the amount, or what if they never increase them? They change the statute. So much is not written in stone, you can't rely upon it.
Right. I'm sorry, can you go over again slowly so I can understand it? But how you came to the opinion that it was unconstitutional? Go over that again, please.
I just read it. It reads, the courts shall be open to every person for redress of any injury, wrongful death, and justice shall be administered without sale, delay, or denial. So if we are getting our rights back, our access to the court, in trade for caps, that's a sale. That is a negotiation for the bill to be enrolled and passed. Because in 1967, we had rights that everybody's forgotten about.
Do we have anyone in the state legislature right now that is willing to argue this for us?
I can't speak to their mind. We have the bill sponsors and the co-sponsors, but what they choose to say, we don't know. I've put them all on notice as to these points. I sent them the 1990 legislature record, and I've never heard anything back.
There was no acknowledgement from anyone you sent it to?
Just auto response, which
Yeah.
is proof of receipt. That helps me in court going that route, the constitutional challenge. I know they were noticed, and that they choose to say nothing or do nothing, it helps.
I'd like to point out, that Travis was a guest on our podcast, a few weeks ago, and his mother was a victim of these free kill laws. If you don't mind, Travis, would you just kind of refresh us on that and what your status is right now with pursuing it?
All right. I'd like to back up just a little bit and say my father was a victim
Oh, I'm
of free
sorry, your
kill
father.
also.
Yeah.
Well, not free kill. No, not free kill. My father was a victim of medical malpractice, undiagnosed cancer, basically. His death put my mom in the category of free kill.
Okay.
Then she ended up having a heart attack, and I took her to a hospital where they promptly started to commit adverse incidents events, and then never disclosed it to my mom, never disclosed it to me. Care went on. We thought we were receiving good care, but research is always retrospective. You look at it after the events happened, trying to figure out what happened. And no doctor was told of the adverse incidents that occurred. Therefore, they could not get informed consent from my mom because they didn't even know to tell my mom of these events. So how, for example, surgery be legally signed off on by my mom, not knowing these events occurred?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a real short nutshell. It's very convoluted what happened. But a lot of federal and state statutes were not followed.
And even though there's a clear record of this, it's not possible for you to get legal representation.
Correct. And that's why I tried to do per se statutory violations. For example, if a person is admitted through the ER, certain laws require the physician or the hospital to notify the primary care physician. That has to occur within 24 hours. You can go to the medical record and see that was not done. You can use HIPAA to require the communications be provided to you. And if they don't list that in the communications, it wasn't done. If it's not documented, it wasn't done. So I ended up going to my mom's primary care physician, filed a HIPAA on them, and can you hear me still?
Sure. Yeah. We're good. Now, it looks like you might have froze up. Okay, one of the other issues with all of these things, like what Travis was just talking about. These legislators, Governor DeSantis, the lobbyists, they're all worried about money, the financial award. But the bigger picture, and especially for us that have been fighting this for so many years now, it's not, obviously it's not the money. It's accountability. If there was no litigation, then for all practical purposes, it didn't happen. If someone goes in and they're contemplating having a very dangerous or a complex surgical procedure, say, well, I want to be sure I go to a good hospital. Well, you go to the state of Florida, you go to ACA, you look up that hospital and you look to see what kind of record they have, what their ratings are. And you say, well, looks like a pretty good place. Not too many incidents there. Well, how many situations like this could potentially have been there that aren't documented because they were never litigated. You know, in the course of the 23, 24 shows we've done, I can tell you that there are 2 hospitals where at least three of these incidents occurred, but there's no record of that. The state of Florida has got no record of that because there was never any litigation. Was that your understanding as well, Travis?
I'm sorry, my screensaver kicked in because I wasn't typing. But I missed your point there. You'd have to restate it.
Well, I'm sorry. I was pointing out that the big problem here is that there's no accountability. If there was no litigation, then there's no record that wrongdoing happened. So people shopping around for a good hospital, people shopping around for a good doctor, they may have a very, very false impression.
Correct, because the only litigation that goes on is of survivors. Therefore, you don't capture anything of people who die. And even the burden of proof is, if you file an administrative complaint, that is at clear and convincing levels, which is like, think of it as like 75%, whereas what criminal law does is like 99%. In civil court, which we're denied, it's like 51%. So between 51 and 75, all those physicians and healthcare workers that are committing atrocities in that range, they go uncaptured because we can't create a record in the civil system because of it, this law.
And the only way there's a record of it is if there's a judgment.
Correct. Right. Well, there could also be a settlement, I believe, but the settlement would show up on Florida Office of Insurance Regulations, but I don't think it has to go to ACA or DOH.
Well, and another point that I wanted to talk about was I remember listening to one of the lobbyists that were advocating for suppressing this movement, and they talked about nuclear awards. You know, a nuclear award, my understanding is an award greater than $10 million.
They're choosing the number when they say that.
Just kind of arbitrary, right?
Yeah, I've heard 10 million. I've heard 20 million from 2 different opposition speakers. So they get to choose the definition.
Well, whatever the case, you know, it's a very, very rare event, and even if there is such an award made for a malpractice suit, there's an appeals process, and these things will always go through an appeals process, and invariably, everything is always downgraded. You know, the size of the award is downgraded.
Right. That's a good point, because the judges get to retain the ability to adjust the jury award. We saw that happen down south with Maya.
Right. And not only that, but I mean look at the irony here. We read these stories all the time. You hear all these stories about they operated on the wrong limb, they took out the wrong organ, you know. And if the victim survives, they have a rock solid case for negligence and malpractice. But if they die, if there's loss of life, yep, and they fall into the profile of the free kill, nothing. That same person with that same profile, had they survived, you know, it just... Okay, what we have up on the screen right now, again, you know, all of us who are working so hard, there's so many of us now, and more people all the time. Everyone who is passionately advocating for the abolishment of these free kill laws. So many of us. I know Travis, Harold, Stephanie, Melody, Cindy, Lauren. I can name everyone. They're doing so at their own expense. They're traveling to Tallahassee at their own expense. They're putting up these billboards at their own expense. If anyone feels inclined to help, you can go to that website that was just up on the screen, and click on that little red button there, and you can any assistance that you can offer in our efforts, anything that you could help us with, would be deeply, deeply appreciated. Well, that time went by quick. Travis, do you have anything you'd like to say in summary?
Just that this will go down. It absolutely will. I just know it in my heart. We just need to keep fighting, and we need public participation. We need more people to participate in their government.
Okay. I agree with you 100%. Okay, well, what we have up on the screen right now is just kind of a little summary of the dynamics of everything that's going on. But what we have to have in huge volumes, the call to action right now is to communicate to the Florida legislators that you want this law abolished. You want a clean repeal of the free kill laws. You're in support of House Bill 6003, Senate Bill 1700. If anyone listening to this is not clear on what they can do specifically, feel free to get in touch with me. My email, my phone number, everything pops up at the conclusion of the broadcast. I will send it to you. I can send it by email. I can send it in Messenger. I can send it in X. That's all I do. I don't do any other social media. But we have people like Travis, Sarah, people that are social media experts, and they'll get the word out. So, thank you, folks. From the bottom of my heart, please heed this appeal. Tell your legislators that you want them to listen to the voices of their constituents over and above the voices of the lobbyists. The lobbyists didn't put them in office. The voters did. Okay, Travis, thank you very much for your time. And especially
pleasure.
on short notice, I'm deeply appreciative.
It's all right.
All right, and folks, thank you very much for spending the time with us again, listening to this, and please, I hope you're inclined, to take some action to help us. You can tell how much we've been talking. All right, thank you very much, and we'll see you again next week.
Imagine this. A loved one, a son or a daughter, has just suffered from a life-threatening accident. They're transported to a state trauma hospital, and despite being in the care of professional physicians, they tragically pass away due to preventable medical errors. As if this was not tragic enough, then finding out that legal statutes in the state of Florida devalue your loved one's life to zero. This is what we are fighting against. Come join Edward Salazar as he discusses the issues surrounding free kill laws and how to resolve them. Catch The Fight Against Free Kill Laws with Ed Salazar on Monday, 5 p.m. on all social media. Learn who we are and join our cause today. Thank you for watching The Fight Against Free Kill Laws with Ed Salazar, where we interview those who have dealt firsthand with medical malpractice. Families are devastated by medical malpractice and left with no justice. This isn't just a loophole. It's a failure to protect the ones we love. It's time to change the law. It's time for accountability. Contact your state legislatures, visit afreekill.com for more information on how to help, or contact Ed at 561-239-2417. Because every life should matter.
You're listening to A Fight Against Free Kill Laws from AMP